It's known as the Internet of Toys, gifts and gadgets increasingly connected to computer networks or apps, but it's raising alarm bells for some consumer watchdogs who say your child's personal information and even their safety could be at risk. I'm joined now by Teresa Murray, Consumer Watchdog for the Public Interest Research Group, which publishes an annual report ahead of the biggest toy shopping season. Thanks, Teresa, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, do you have questions or concerns about toy safety this holiday season? Give us a call at 549-2937, tag us on X at FCC On Air, or send an email to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. So, Teresa Murray, you recently published this report on toys and some toy concerns. What did the report find when it comes to network-enabled toys in particular?
Yes, well, what we looked at this year are smart toys, which are just booming in popularity. And so many toys now have microphones or cameras or geolocators, and they'll have Wi-Fi connections and Bluetooth. And a lot of times parents are not even aware of what the toy can do and what kind of information it can collect. So we sought to try and alert parents to what they need to know about toys and the questions that they need to ask.
And so what are you instructing parents to do when they are considering buying a network-enabled toy?
Okay, and make a distinction. They're not necessarily all network-enabled. There are a lot of toys that can collect information without necessarily being connected all the time to Wi-Fi. But basically, if you need to figure out whether the toy, it could be a stuffed animal, it could be a board game, it could be some other kind of very traditional toy, a race car set. And a lot of these can't come with these kinds of capabilities, or they connect to an app. And you need to read the privacy policy. That's it. Just full stop. Read the privacy policy. Don't just start an account. Don't just click boxes. Yes. Don't let your child register for an account or provide an email address or anything like that. Parents and gift givers need to really read the privacy policy and figure out what this toy is doing, what kind of information it's collecting, and if it has a microphone, how do you turn it off? If it has a camera, how do you disable it? Those are questions that you need to ask.
And that's because toys can gather information, including from very young children, and sometimes share it or use it to encourage the child or whoever owns the toy to, maybe make a purchase of some kind within an app. So there are ways for those toys to transmit that information to third parties even.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's not just hypothetical. I mean, it's happened. A lot of these toys, you read deep into the fine print on page 211 or whatever, they'll tell you what they're doing with the information. And it doesn't seem to matter to some of these toy manufacturers that it's illegal for a product manufacturer, for a toy company, to collect information on children under 13 without the parents' consent. And it's the federal law, and yet even in the last few years, we've seen a lot of companies that have violated that and have gotten busted by the Federal Trade Commission.
And major companies, yes.
Yes, major companies, a couple just this year, Amazon and Microsoft. And in recent years, about the last 5 years, the Federal Trade Commission has really been going after these companies because we need to protect our children's safety. So you mentioned the marketing. Yes, that's part of it, trying to sell our kids things that they don't need or we wouldn't want them to have. And then also identity theft. I mean, we all know how rampant it is and scams that are out there, not just for your child, but also for your family, because a lot of these things collect like ambient noise. And then, some of these toys have geolocators. And there have been cases where creepers have tracked down children and have intended harm. It's awful.
And there was one, you can't go through every toy, obviously, but there was one toy in particular that you flagged this year as a microphone that was pairing with strangers' devices, essentially, via Bluetooth.
Yes, and we did test out a number of toys this year, as we do every year, not to necessarily target those specific toys, but just to see how they worked. And so this toy, it said it was Bluetooth enabled. It said it came with a password, and we're like, okay, maybe that's all right. So we bought the toy, and initially we found that the password was 0000, and it's like, well, that's not very helpful. But then it didn't even require the password. We tested it with 3 different phones in different locations on different days, and we were able to pair with it automatically every single time with no password. Now, if you're in your home, maybe that's okay, but again, you have creepy people and it's happened that people have stalked kids, or in a park or in a public place like a mall. And you just don't want something that your young child, like a 4-year-old, is holding in his or her hands to be able to be Bluetooth enabled and pair with some stranger's device. And the thing that was important about this is it popped up on the phones that we were testing. It popped up without even trying. Like if you just go to Bluetooth, it would show you what was available in the area that you could pair with.
So where do you urge parents to go for more information about this before they go shopping?
Well, there are a number of privacy groups out there that really urge parents what to do. I mean, certainly we are one of many that talk about this. And there's a privacy organization called Epic that has a lot of really good information for parents. But it varies, okay? So what you need to do is look for the federal law, which is COPA, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Read what it requires manufacturers, toy manufacturers to do. But everything is individual. So you really, when you get a toy, whether it's a doll baby or a stuffed animal or a game or whatever, you need to read the privacy policy. Like, people spend a lot of time looking, it's like, oh, hey, honey, where do you want to go out to eat this week? And they'll read restaurant reviews for a half hour. Well, take a few minutes and sit down with a cup of coffee and read the privacy policy and see if you're okay with it. And if you're not, then, you may want to consider returning the toy. And the other thing that's really important is on the horizon, we have artificial intelligence. And so these toy manufacturers are able to collect more and more data about our children, including biometric data.
So that's something we'll be watching for. Teresa Murray, Consumer Watchdog for the Public Interest Research Group. Thank you so much for joining us today.